Hello, pre-algebra. We're going to talk a little bit today about operations with subtraction. We're going to talk about operations with integers. We're still in chapter 2, and today we're looking at subtraction. So we're going to talk about rules for subtraction. Today we don't have any vocabulary. Yay! So what we do have is simply 4 examples. So leave some space in your notes for 4 examples. Let's take a look at the first one. The first example asks us to find each difference. And if you notice, we've got 6 minus 15. If I'm going to subtract this, the text is going to suggest that you rewrite this, changing this subtraction to adding the additive inverse. Do you guys remember what the additive inverse is? Do you remember? The additive inverse is the opposite of the number. So if I had 5, the additive inverse is negative 5. If I have negative 3, the additive inverse is positive 3. So let's use that knowledge to answer this. So here I've got 6 minus 15. I'm going to rewrite it as 6 plus I'm adding the additive inverse of minus 15, of positive 15, that's going to be negative 15. So 6 plus a negative 15, when I'm adding 2 numbers with different signs, we talked about that in the last lesson, we subtract and we take the answer takes the sign of the higher looking number. So 15 looks larger, or the absolute value of 15 is larger than 6. Therefore, the answer is going to be a negative 9. Let's look at this next guy. Here we have a similar situation. We are subtracting a number. We're going to write it as adding the additive inverse. So I have negative 7. This number stays the same. And then this changes to addition of negative 8. Here I'm adding 2 numbers with the same sign. So I just add and keep the sign the same. Negative 7 plus a negative 8 is a negative 15. And I'm done. So that's all we need to do for the first example. Couple things I want to talk about really quickly is that you're probably used to this from another teacher saying keep, change, change. And that's perfectly reasonable. Notice when we do the keep, change, change, we get exactly the same thing. What we're doing is simply adding, the additive inverse. For this next example, we are subtracting a negative number. Still the same rule. We're going to do the same keep, change, change idea, or adding the additive inverse. So what we have is 9 plus a positive 2. And 9 plus positive 2, both signs are the same. We're just going to add and keep the sign the same, and so our answer is 11. Over here, 3 minus a negative 5. What we'll do here is we will add the additive inverse. So I'm going to add the opposite of negative 5 is a positive 5. And again, I get 3 plus 5, regular problem, just 8. Just add and keep the sign the same. Notice, keep, change, change, keep this, change that. Keep this, change that. We get exactly the same thing. Our next problem is a word problem. Example 3 is asking us to subtract an integer, but it's going to be in a real world situation. So if we take a look, we see that the wind makes the outside temperature feel colder than the actual temperature. How much colder does a temperature of 10 degrees Fahrenheit with a 30 mile per hour wind feel than the same temperature with a 10 mile per hour wind? So here's what you guys are going to do. We're going to first, let me move this out of the way, we're going to use this chart over here to answer that question. Before we use the chart, we need to make sure we understand what it is. The title is wind chill temperature, so that's what's going on here in purple. And this, I wrote this really poorly, is calm. So when it is calm, the temperature is 20 degrees, that's just the temperature. But when it's calm, with a wind speed, because the speed of the wind is given here in yellow, calm, 20 degrees, but if the wind speed is 10 miles per hour, then it feels like 9 degrees. If the wind speed is 20 miles per hour, then it feels like 4. If the wind speed is 30 miles per hour, then it feels like 1. And we can do that with each. But let's go back to our problem and figure out what it is we are being asked to do. So it says we're comparing 2 temperatures, or the feeling, the wind chill temperatures at a particular time when we're talking about 10 degrees Fahrenheit at 30 miles per hour, and again 10 degrees Fahrenheit at 10 miles per hour. So what I'd like to do is to highlight that in my chart. So here, 10 degrees, but at 10 miles per hour we're looking at this one, and at 30 miles per hour we're looking at this one. And so what we need to do is calculate the difference in temperature. That's all we're doing. We're calculating the difference. So here we have negative 4 minus a negative 12. How do we handle problems like this? Let me turn this around a little bit. How do we handle problems like this? we're going to do what we did last time. Keep, change, change. So I'm going to keep this first term the same, change this, and then change that. Again, I'm just adding the additive inverse, so I'm adding a positive 12. When I do that, the change in temperature is going to be listed as 8 degrees. So there's an 8 degrees change in field of temperature. And that's pretty much it. So our final example is example 4, and we're going to be evaluating an algebraic expression, and we're going to use the concept of subtracting negative numbers. So that's where we are. So if we're going to evaluate A minus B minus C, if A is equal to 4, B is equal to 3, and C is equal to negative 10, how will we do it? The first thing we all know that we need to do is we need to replace the variables with its assigned value. So we step over here, and instead of having A minus B minus C, I will write 4 minus 3 minus a negative 10. So I've just replaced the variables with their values, and now I can go ahead. I'm going to take it 2 by 2. So 4 minus 3 will give me a positive 1. So I end up with 1 minus a negative 10, and this is a great opportunity for me to do keep, change, change. 1 plus a positive 10 is going to end up giving me 11. You may have looked at this and thought, could you have done keep, change, change here? And you could. Look at this 4. You could have said 4 plus a negative 3, and this negative 3 plus a positive 10, and you could have done the problem that way as well. Again, 4 plus a negative 3 would give me a positive 1, and then negative 3 plus a positive 1 plus that positive 10 gives me 11. So in each case, we get 11. So your problems for tonight are as follows, pages 70 to 80, and you'll do the problems 13 through 37 odd, 41 through 43, and then 58 through 61. Have an excellent day.